And there I was. I was the girl from Suits.
This one's wife. Harry loved Kate. This one's wife went nuts. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Daniela Elsa writes for news.com.au in love. Wild Prince Harry and Kate Middleton revelation. A respected royal expert has weighed in on what's really behind the Kate Middleton This One's Wife feud. Well, let's dive in and see if this is accurate with regard to the behaviour of a narcissist. Ready your smelling salts. Position yourself near an appropriately padded surface in case of a swoon. Have I got a shocker for you today? A new claim about the flash-in-the-pan Royal Fab 4 that is nothing short of wild. But it's also a claim that, once you get over the initial shock, starts to hold the echo of something more substantial. Here's the backstory. Long-time editor of Majesty magazine, the #1 title globally for crown botherers and people deeply invested in the comings and goings of Prince Richard, the Duke of Gloucester, has written a new King Charles biography, My Mother and I. The book has been getting glowing reviews thanks to the fact that it involves top-notch reporting. Over the weekend, The Telegraph published an interview with author Ingrid Seward, during which she was, as is legally required, asked about the Great Schism, whether the simmering stewpot of grievance and rancour that exists between Prince William and Prince Harry might ever be fixed. Can the greatest royal family falling out since the War of the Roses ever be rectified? William, Seward answered, is not going to readily overlook his brother essentially sacrificing Kate on the altar of spare and revealing fairly petty details like the Princess of Wales not wanting to share her lip gloss with this one's wife. Seward explained, unfortunately, it points to this one's wife, doesn't it? Maybe Harry was a little in love with Kate. Record scratch. There are, as the Brits say, marmalade droppers, and then there is this. But before anyone thinks that Seward, a stalwart of the royal scene, is introducing unrequited romantic yearning into the mix of egos, anger, and allegations of bullying and bias, hold your horses. She then went on to clarify her jaw dropper, saying, No, I don't mean physically, but mentally. Remember when it was just the three of them? He always longed for a sister. He told Diana that. Psychologically, I think he just adored her. And he was always there at Kensington Palace in their fridge, you know. Hey, what's for supper? And she has a point. For a long time there, Kate seemed to fulfill a specific and needed role in Harry's hurly-burly life and inner world. The Duke was only 12 years old when his long-since deified mother, Diana, the former Princess of Wales, died, thus leaving an unthinkable emotional void in his life. For years, there might have been the jolly hockey sticks, just shoot a small bird and buck up boyo presence of Nanny Tiggy Leg Bork in Harry's life, but unproblematic feminine affection? Any sort of stable home life? Sadly not. And then Kate Middleton arrived on the scenes with her bourgeois notions of dinners eaten at kitchen tables and not in mahogany-panelled caverns full of crystal and silverware, and whammo! Harry had finally acquired a warm, emotionally literate maternal figure wishing to dish out hugs and large helpings of shepherd's pies. It was a dynamic that, with hindsight, was never going to last, not when Harry started to create for himself something that his brother had long since managed to family. Now, it's undoubtedly the case that Harry will have had affection for his sister-in-law. Not in some kind of I want to bonk her way, but who knows with regard to the Randy Ginger. But let's park that for the time being. He's not going to trample on the union between his wife and his brother in that way, certainly at least not back then. Catherine, an empathic individual with plenty of emotional empathy, would have been kind, charming, compassionate towards Harry. She readily embraced him calling round because, of course, it's her husband's brother. She also recognised the difficulties that he had been put through and was sympathetic to those. And one can see that in any of the pictures and interactions that happened before the spider came along, that Harry adored his sister-in-law, that he enjoyed her company, that she cared for him, that there was a fantastic bond between the two of them, something which William would have been very pleased at. After all, you want your wife to get on with your family, you want your family to get on with your wife. And therefore the closeness that is clearly apparent from their liaison before this one's wife turned up will have been something not only beneficial to all three of them, but something which was particularly pleasing to William. Harry will have benefited from it also. As stated, he wanted a sister. The calm, measured behaviours of Catherine was something that he needed to steady him, somebody that he could talk to, receive a feminine input, and therefore not only was it something that he would benefit from, but it will have caused him to develop a kind of crush towards Catherine. That the vulnerabilities that he experienced, she didn't harness and use against him in the way that the narcissist did, but rather she understood them, and she sought to support him, to protect him, to involve him. All of those things resonated with Harry, and therefore he will have looked on at Catherine with considerable care and love in a family manner. Not a romantic love, but a love for his sister-in-law as a consequence of the close bond that had developed. Now, that poses a problem. Why? Because although it's a platonic familial love that exists, the fact is that all of Harry's fuel, namely his attention, his emotional output, has to go towards this one's wife. And where she witnessed the closeness of the bond between Harry and Catherine, that threatened her need for control. When a narcissist comes into somebody's life romantically, the existing networks that the victim have can cause two potential problems for the narcissist. The first is where that existing network thinks, hang on a second, this Johnny or Janie come lately, i.e. the narcissist, there's something not quite right about them. Something doesn't sit well with me. In the way which William identified that things were moving too fast between Harry and this one's wife. Thus, William would have been denoted to be a threat in that regard. They may not recognise that this is a narcissist, but they think that things are moving too quickly. They identify that some of the behaviours of the narcissist don't sit well with them, that there's a problem. And thus this individual is subconsciously flagged by the unaware narcissist as being a troublemaker. The second problem is where there is somebody within the existing network of the victim who attracts a lot of the victim's attention. Thus, Catherine posed a threat to this one's wife because Harry adored her. A non-narcissist would think it's great that you get on with your sister-in-law, and I look forward to becoming firm friends with her also. This one's wife may well have made such noises at the beginning, part of the veneer, part of her facade. But the fact is, the bond that existed between Harry and Catherine was her threat to control over Harry, because it meant that the fuel that Harry should be providing to this one's wife, some of it was going to Catherine. Not that Catherine needs it, but the point is, it should all be going. And of course, that then means that Catherine becomes painted black. And the fact that she's elegant, already within the royal family, had good relationships with the late Queen and Prince Philip, that other members of the royal family liked her, all of this meant that this one's wife saw her as a rival and became the nemesis. In many ways, Catherine represented what this one's wife believed she should be. And the fact, of course, that she commanded that adoration from Harry posed a huge threat and undoubtedly will have caused her to go nuts. In the golden period, she will have not have lashed out at anybody, but instead there would have been little comments here and there from her. You really like Kate, don't you? Oh, yeah, sure, she's a great girl. That was done by her narcissism to test the extent of this potential threat. That she would have been keeping eyes on interactions between Harry and Catherine, as her paranoia would be whispering, there's something going on between those two. He's got a crush on her, you know. You need to keep an eye on her. That each look in her direction would have been interpreted as some kind of scathing, contemptuous look from Catherine when it was entirely an innocent glance in her direction. That the narcissism will have earmarked Catherine at an early juncture as a threat that had to be dealt with. Danny Elsa continues by explaining that in 2016 the course of royal history swerved off ploddingly predictable course when the Duke spotted his now wife, this one's wife, on Instagram. So Harry meets this one's wife. Cutesy-tootsy iPhone photos get taken as they moon over one another, golden period, as she seduces him. He learns what Kale is, she buys Hunter wellies, and the British press begins to dust off adjectives such as fairy tale and real-life Cinderella story. As we all know now, though, a hell of a lot more was going on behind the scenes, and the Kensington Palace ecosystem was jolted out of whack. It soon became apparent that things were breaking down behind the scenes. William and Harry were scrapping, and the notion that Kate and this one's wife might one day form a sisterhood of the travelling tiara was quickly dispelled. And thus the age of the cosy kitchen suppers and the shepherd's pie summits were over. Seward told the Telegraph, I think that this one's wife must have been incredibly envious and then jealous of of Kate. She'd have been envious of her because she'd have seen the various traits that commanded affection, adoration, admiration from other people, and thus she wanted them for herself. She would have been jealous of Harry, not Kate, because she wouldn't have feared losing Kate, but she would have feared losing Harry. Just a reminder, you're envious of what somebody else has. So, for instance, you're envious of your neighbour's new car. You're jealous of something that you fear that you might lose. Thus, you can be jealous of your power. You can be jealous of your wealth. You can be jealous of your girlfriend because you fear losing her. And many people use jealous when they mean envious. I see it repeatedly in the comments section. You can, of course, be both envious and jealous of a person. You can envy the fact that they're brilliant at football and jealous of them because you fear losing that key football player to another team. Seward believes that she was both envious and jealous of Kate, and there is no doubt that she will have been and remains envious of Kate for the reasons explained. Elsa continues, we are in some complicated, deep-seated Oedipal psychological and emotional territory here, given that Harry's repeatedly compared this one's wife to Diana. During the Sussex's Netflix series, Harry said so much of what this one's wife is and how she is so similar to my mum, or rather, that's what he's been led to believe by her as she's brainwashed him, because that Diana duplication enables her to control Harry. We, of course, know she's nothing like Diana. Tom Bauer, in his 2021 book Revenge, writes that when the couple got together and Harry introduced this one's wife to Diana's sisters and a former best friend, he had assumed they would see a similarity between Diana and his fiancée. Both, he said, shared the same problems. He was disappointed. No one agreed with him, which demonstrates again the extent to which Harry has been dragged into the awful shared fantasy with this one's wife. She has cultivated the image of I'm like your mum, which has been done to triangulate Harry and control him and draw fuel from him. Nobody else sees it because she's nothing like her. Seward, in her interview with the Telegraph, also revealed another layer of complications to this already fraught picture. I heard this one's wife actually thought she was going to be a princess. Delusion. And live in Windsor Castle. Delusion. Instead, there's William and Kate with this beautiful house while they are stuck in Nottingham Cottage, which Harry used to call my hovel. That hovel is a cottage designed by one of the UK's most famous architects, Sir Christopher Wren. Is inside the Kensington Palace complex, which sits on one of the world's most expensive streets and is where William and Kate lived for 2 years, including when they had Prince George. It is the case that the relationship that Harry had with Kate will have been one where he had that familial love for her. Indeed, it's still there. But, of course, he has to quieten it, because any manifestation of it, as he has revealed, results in devaluing behaviours being sent his way by his both envious and jealous wife. The fact that Harry had such a good relationship with Catherine posed a threat to the control of Harry by this one's wife, and immediately meant that Catherine became titled the Nemesis. Everything about her became seen through a lens of painted black, and started the feud. This one's wife can't compete with her, but doesn't recognise that. This one's wife sees her as a threat to control subconsciously, and that is why she sought to damage the relationship between Harry and Catherine. That's why she'll have repeatedly lied about saying how Catherine made her cry in order to elicit the emotional sympathy from Harry, why she smeared Catherine to Harry, making out that she caused problems, that she pulled her face with regard to the use of the lip balm, etc. All done to make Catherine look less in the eyes of Harry, so that she could assert more control over him. The fact that her husband-to-be and then husband holds such a torch to Catherine is an eternal thorn in the side of this one's wife. And it's one that repeatedly will cause her to go nuts. For instance, Harry's reaction to seeing Catherine in a gold dress. Wow, that set this one's wife off. Rather than her be pleased that her husband had such a good relationship with his sister-in-law, because she's a narcissist, this one's wife can only ever see it as a threat. And therefore, with her being deemed to be the nemesis, this results in a furious reaction from this one's wife and the repeated need to do Catherine down. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.